All right. Hey, everybody, we are live. Tonight, we've got Leslie Gossett to talk to us about herbal remedies and what you should have herbal remedy wise and to go in with your preparedness plan. And Shelly with Two Old Crows Homestead is here tonight, and Leslie's here. Leslie, start it off. Tell everybody kind of who you are, what you do. Some people, I mean, you're known far and wide, but not everybody knows who you are. So kind of give us an overview of what you do and what you're offering service wise, and we'll kind of get with it that way.
Sounds good. So, hey, everybody. My name is Leslie, and I run the School of Earth and Awe. I am a forager, an herbalist. I'm a certified naturalist through the state of Tennessee. Also like a hobby naturalist, and in general, just a plant lover. And what I'm really inspired by is teaching people how to find food and medicine in the wild. So this is what our ancestors did for until very, very recently. And sadly, there are gaps in the generational passing on. And I think a lot of people are trying to reclaim that now. So what I really want to do is teach people how to go outside, identify plants, and know what part of the plant you can eat, how to prepare it, which plants offer medicine, how to turn them into medicine, and really how to care for yourself outside of the system. There's so much free like healthcare just outdoors, like outside in front of us. And things where you don't have to get somebody else's permission and pay thousands of dollars and wait for an appointment. You can actually just help yourself and your family. And so what I do is I lead workshops and classes that teach people how to identify and harvest plants, how to learn about which plants offer which medicine, how to make medicine out of them, how to eat the plants. I'll also work one-on-one with clients who are struggling with certain health challenges, to kind of get a take on what they're going through. And then I can offer different options on how to help yourself. And that can be anything from dietary changes to working with herbs, or even just learning how to breathe, which can actually solve a lot of problems. And I also do guided plant walks. Like I have people pay me to come out to their land and just walk them around to teach them what's growing on their land that they can use.
So when you say teach them how to breathe, what does that mean?
So
with Sandy, like Billy talks about.
A lot of people breathe like just from their chest or very shallowly, or even they do reverse breathing where so naturally, if you breathe in, air is coming into your diaphragm, everything should expand because it's filling with air. And when you breathe out, things should contract. And a lot of people get caught in reverse breathing. So they're breathing in as they contract everything and breathing out as it expands. And so it just, the way that the breath is supposed to work in the body and the way that the oxygen moves through your body, like getting your breath back on track and in sync can solve a lot of like nervous system issues, even cardiovascular issues. Yeah. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
There's lots of breathing techniques for specific conditions too, like to help you sleep, to calm you down, to, help lower your blood pressure. So
some of us could use that.
Yeah.
This guy right here. This guy.
I'm starting my herbal regimen to lower my blood pressure. So I've got to order all the crap.
Yep.
Hey, Miss Sharon. Good to see you here.
And well, yeah, I mean, talking about just looking the stuff that just grows around. You were down here last Saturday for our chicken processing class, and you came up. I mean, you hadn't been here a minute, and you're like, "You've got this growing, you've got that growing." I'm like, "Hey, you walked 100 feet, and you've already seen all this stuff." I was like, "Let's go down where all the weeds are growing." You're like, "These are not weeds," and I'm like,
"That's medicine, and that's food."
Yeah. So I mean, what did we spend? We walked down to the food forest and spent what 15 minutes down there.
Yeah.
And you're like, here's this, here's that,
Yep.
and I was like, awesome. I was like, I was
So was it stuff that was growing that you hadn't planted in the food forest?
part
Part
of
of
wasn't,
it
but
was stuff
wasn't.
you had planted, and part of it was stuff you hadn't. And I mean, if you walk down, your food forest is also an apothecary. Like you had antivirals, you had nervines, you had like all sorts of medicine down there. Allergy medicine was growing down there.
Yeah.
Kidney and urinary support. I mean, everything.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you were done telling me that, I'm like, screw the chickens. Let's just sit down here and show me all this stuff.
Yeah.
Just do something else. So
I need to hire you to come up to my place because Randy gets so mad at me because he'll say he's like, I need to weed eat like this area, and I'm like, no, I got to get my app out and make sure you're not putting out something that could like make us feel better.
Exactly.
He's like, will you just let me weed eat?
That's what I do. You know that like orange tape? What is that called? I don't know. I go around and tie that around, and my dad's and my brothers, I'm walking their land all the time, putting this tape around like, don't mow here. That's yarrow. Don't mow here. That's this. And they're like mowing around my patches. Like, I don't know, Leslie, whatever. You're a weirdo, but we'll do it for you. So
they look like they were drunk mowing the yard.
Yeah, totally. Just making big swerves. You pull up in, you see, look out over their lawn and they'll be mowed, and then just a circle of something growing.
Yard mowing sponsored by Maker's Mark. That's funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's a question on there. It says, Leslie, how far are you from Washington State? Oh, a long way.
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, y'all. Yeah.
Winter Homestead has 28 acres off grid with
lots of plants.
Lots of plants. Yeah.
Awesome. I bet there's so much medicine.
Will you go to Washington State for the right amount of money?
For the right amount of money, yeah.
There's so many books out there. I mean, I've been accumulating books, but what do you recommend? Because some of them there's just so much information, and again, like when Randy goes out to mow or weed eat, I just look out there and I'm like, he's just cutting all the good stuff down, but I don't even know what the good stuff is. There's so many books, like for that.
Well, if you're a person who actually wants to be walking outside and identifying your plants, you kind of have to start with botany. And like, it can be overwhelming to look at this whole world and see everything and all the resources. But there's a book called Botany in a Day. And I would say that if there's anything the most foundational to cultivating this skill for yourself, it would be understanding plant families. Because you can go look at a plant and you can say, what shape is the leaf? Does it have a smooth side or a jagged toothed edge?
Right.
Are the leaves coming out opposite on the stem or alternate on the stem? How many petals are on that flower? And you can put it in a plant family, right? And you're like, oh, that's definitely a mustard family. Okay, well, there you go. Then it's probably edible. Or you can say, oh, this is a pea family plant. Okay, highly likely it's edible. Mint family plant probably has medicine. So that'll get you like in the door pretty solidly, because if you can get to a plant family, then you can also use a field guide a lot easier. Because my second thing would be get you a good field guide that's specific to your area. Not one of these generic like plants of the Southeast. I'm like, well, Florida plants are completely different than plants in the Mississippi River Delta. So no. What is your most like bioregional local field guide that exists for plants? And if you can already look at that plant and be like, this is definitely a mint family plant, then keying it out, because field guide keys can be pretty confusing. And I'm actually in the process of filming a whole online class about how to use a key in a field guide, because that is a whole thing. But if you can get in the family, then you can flip to that family in your field guide. And if it has good photos, you're like, okay, it's definitely that. And that's going to make you really confident on ID. And I would say, why is it important? Because, I mean, there are like poisonous lookalikes in every part of the US. There are things you need to know, like poison hemlock grows literally everywhere here in Middle Tennessee. I mean, it's on the side of every highway, on every greenway. And once you actually looked at it up close, you realize that it looks absolutely nothing like wild carrot, which also grows everywhere here. But you read about it and people have eaten hemlock root thinking it was wild carrot how many times? And like, if they only would have just looked up close, like just known, what do I look for? Is the stem fuzzy or smooth?
Right.
That's it.
Isn't one purple and one's not?
Well, but the thing is, sometimes you can find Queen Anne's lace that has like a tinge of red or something on the stem. And hemlock has like distinct blotches, but not always. Sometimes the young plants don't have those blotches yet. So you got to learn like which is the thing that's always true. Always wild carrot has a hairy stem. Always hemlock has a smooth stem. And then if you look at the flowers, to me, they don't look alike. They're not even coming out in the same arrangement. Yeah. So it's just really getting yourself out there and getting your eyes on the plants and paying attention. And like the more you do that, the more you even walk around outside and just stop and look and notice, oh, interesting, that flower looks like this. And oh, those leaves look like that. And oh, I saw that plant over here too. Like every time you do that, you're going to be making those connections.
I know nothing about it. I need to learn.
I mean, everybody needs to learn, really.
I know I've got an awesome mullein plant growing down there that's taller than me. And I'm like, this is pretty cool.
It's probably flowering right now. Down here, they're all flowering.
It is. It's not. It's turning a little yellow and flowering, but not all the way.
So it'll soon flower.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like I was driving to Shelley's the other day to do something, driving up to her house and going up the Parkway. I was looking, and there's like mullein plant.
Oh yeah,
Parkway.
And I'm I'm gonna stop and dig some of that stuff up.
Yeah. So, they love disturbed areas. They love gravelly, disturbed.
You see all kinds of like mullein, and when I come home on the Parkway, there's all kinds of elderberry along the side of the road. But I tell people, and I'm not an expert, but harvesting off the side of the Parkway, yes or no?
I would say no. I mean, you don't all that car exhaust and all that crap going over the plants. Like I would stay away from roadsides. I would stay completely away from where they're spraying any sort of pesticides or chemicals or even the runoff of that. And then obviously, if your dogs use the bathroom in an area, just watch out.
But at your uncle's farm, it's okay.
Yeah, I harvested the mullein from your uncle's farm, but it was like, I mean, look how far it is off the road, man.
Yeah.
We were doing another KSL thing out there, and we pull in, and I see there's 5 huge mullein plants, and I said, Can I get those plants? And he goes, what is that? And I said, mullein. And he goes, well, yeah, nobody's here. I don't care. And so me and another girl that was with us, we're out there yanking mullein up out of the ground.
Yep.
This isn't getting sprayed by anything. We're taking this home.
I love it.
Had like half a truck full of mullein. I looked over and I'm like, yeah, go on.
One of the we had our pickup, and one of the plants was longer than the bed of our pickup. It was that tall.
Whoa, that's amazing.
So, yeah, it was some big stuff, and we were like, yeah, we're taking this stuff home.
I mean, it's such good stuff, for the respiratory support. And like the thing about herbs for lungs and respiratory situations is you got to think about whether it's like a wet, like there's a lot of mucus, there's a lot of gunk, or whether it's dry. And a lot of herbs, if you get it wrong, it'll actually make it worse. So if you hear like this herb is good for a cough, probably not necessarily. Like it depends on the cough. But in my experience, and with the people I've given it to, mullein kind of helps all the situations. It helps clear the mucus. It helps soothe the mucous membranes, the lung tissues. It's just really awesome ally to have on hand. And even for kids, like safe for kids. So I would absolutely put mullein in like one of the things you want in your family apothecary. And especially around here where it grows in abundance, like all you have to do is harvest the leaves on the first year plant and tincture them.
I want to smoke some of it.
I mean, I've done that before. When I had like a really intense congestion and the tincture wasn't really doing anything. And I ground up some mullein and I smoked it like one inhale, and I was coughing stuff up for like the next 30 minutes, clearing it out.
Wow.
It was amazing. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Get some rolling papers and go with it.
There you go. I know it.
Tell the officer, be like, officer, it's just mullein. That's
You know, I actually, so I think about this a lot because I do programs out at Long Hunter State Park. I'm friends with one of the rangers there, and every time she finds Usnea lichen, she like saves it for me. And so when I see her, she gives me a Ziploc bag of lichen. And I was driving one day and I realized that I'd left it stuffed in the side door of my car. I'm like, if I get pulled over, some officer's going to be like, what's that like green stuff in a Ziploc baggie you have in your car? I'm like, I promise it's a lichen. It's a medicinal lichen.
Sure it is.
I know.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What's that? What do you use to grind your mullein, Leslie?
So I usually will tear the leaves by hand first, and then I will chop them with scissors into smaller pieces. And then if I want to actually grind it, then just my mortar and pestle, usually. You can also use like a coffee grinder that you've cleaned all the coffee out of.
So Miss Sharon said that hers turns into fluff when she does that. Is that a problem? Is that
Nope.
normal for it to do that?
Yeah, it's pretty fluffy. It's got all that hair on it, so
yeah,
no problem. It's a very light, like once it's ground and cut, it's going to be very, very light. It's not going to be the same texture as other dried herbs.
Well, let's shift gears, Leslie. If somebody wanted to have a stash of herbal tinctures for preparedness-minded people, what's some of the top ones that you would say?
You know, Usnea lichen, actually, the one I was just talking about, is one of my number one things because it is such a powerful antibiotic that, like, in certain studies they've done, and you can go online to NCBI where all those databases are of the studies they've done with herbs. It can treat pharmaceutical resistant bacterial infections. So that's really cool to me. It also has really strong antifungal properties and a strong affinity for the respiratory system and respiratory conditions. So when I think about, like, worst case scenario, let's say we can't access modern medical care for whatever reason, what do we want to have on hand? Well, I mean, respiratory infections can get pretty serious, right? Bacterial infections can get pretty serious if they go untreated. So that's absolutely something that I'm going to have on hand for myself and my family. And if you keep tinctures on hand too, they have an insanely long shelf life. So that's really nice because you can harvest it, make a lot of it. I mean, it'll last basically forever. It's preserved already in alcohol. So you can have that on hand. Also, I would think a lot about like topical wounds and what I could do for herbal first aid. Usnea is a styptic as well, meaning it stops bleeding. So powdered Usnea lichen on a wound that is bleeding excessively can stop that bleeding. Yarrow can do the same thing. So keeping dried yarrow or even yarrow tincture is probably one that I like use for many, many things most days. It has so many different uses internally and externally, but first aid, it's amazing. Any sort of, it's an astringent. So any sort of like wet, mucousy, drainy, even kidney and bladder situations, it can dry up and tonify the tissues. It has antibacterial, antimicrobial properties. It does something pretty cool inside the body for the female reproductive system because it can both stop bleeding and promote bleeding. So it can regulate the female cycle. So when people start talking about like, oh, there's an herb for this and an herb for that, it's not really true, because one herb can have so many different indications. It can work on so many different body systems. It's never just an herb does one thing. So I like to think about having on hand the things for all the different body systems. So, do you want to have cleavers on hand for lymphatic drainage? I would want to have something on hand for digestion. So dandelion root is amazing. Also supporting like liver and bile issues. And these are all things that are readily accessible and growing in abundance here. Also, topically, a lot of the little tiny spring plants are great for wound healing. So violet leaf, violet flower, plantain, chickweed. Right now, jewelweed is popping up, amazing for like poison ivy rashes. Yeah, and the list goes on. I mean, but absolutely, usnea, yarrow, probably some elderberry and elderflower, because we're getting back into like antivirals. There is a plant here that is called bidens. We have the species Bipinnata, but there's many different species. And this one is actually a systemic antibacterial antibiotic, which it's even harder to treat something systemic. Usually you can get local antibiotics from plants. So that's a good one to have on hand. Yeah, I could go on. I could talk about this for 3 hours.
What did you say that was?
It's called bidens. I think I'm trying to think of the common name of the one here. Spanish needles is called here commonly.
All right. Does one cause inflation?
I've never heard of it.
All right. Miss Sharon wants to know, would you recommend using glycerin to make tinctures for children?
So that's an excellent question. And there's a lot of different opinions out there. You're going to find a lot of herbalists who say absolutely. What I was taught is that glycerin does not extract most things that you're wanting. So the way plant medicine works is that we put our plant in a menstruum because we're trying to draw out the chemical constituents of that plant. And those constituents need to be drawn out by whatever their solubility is. So if it's water soluble, it's a tea. If it's alcohol soluble, it's a tincture, etc. So glycerin is pretty good for some things, like especially flowers. Like I know glycerin draws out rose medicine pretty well, chamomile medicine, lemon balm. But glycerin will not draw out a lot of stuff as strong as alcohol will. And so I was taught to not rely on glycerin for the strength of a medicine that an alcohol tincture would create for certain plants. So I would just do a little research.
And I've also heard too that the glycerin will go bad, where as opposed to the alcohol should never go bad, right?
Yeah, the glycerin does have a shorter shelf life overall.
And then also, everybody that's here and everybody that watch this later on, we're talking to Leslie about this, and one of the things, if you want to learn more, it's July 20th. There's a link in the description below. She's going to be teaching a full-day herbal class. We'll get into more of that later, but I just wanted to mention it for everybody that's here now. And if people don't make the whole live or watch the whole video, but July 20th, Leslie's going to come in Bowling Green, Kentucky. She's going to do a full-day herbal class. We got lunch provided. She's going to be there answering your questions. You're actually going to make some tinctures that you get to take home with you. We'll delve into that here in just a little bit, but now I'll turn it back over to you to finish up kind of what we're needing to put in our preparedness medicine cabinet.
Yeah, so I would think about any conditions that you or your family members like are currently treating with pharmaceutical medicine, and what is your plan for if you can't get those pharmaceuticals. So this is a time when it would actually be pretty handy to consult an herbalist to help you figure that out. And, you know, the one the one thing that you want to look for is an herbalist who works with local plants, because you can do something called like armchair herbalism, where that you know a lot about all these plants that you can order from places on the internet, but they don't necessarily grow where you are. That's not going to help you in like a preparedness scenario.
Right.
You actually need to know, what plants can I utilize that are right here, right now? And I promise you there are some. It might take a little bit of digging, because maybe you research it and you're looking up what plant it says and you're like, oh, well, that's in Europe only, or that don't, I'm in the South and that only grows in the Pacific Northwest. Well, guess what? There's going to be another plant near you that can support you. And so I would really be starting to do some research, talking to a local herbalist and trying to tincture up that medicine that your family relies on every day. Like personally, I take a tincture every day because I have a heart condition, and I took myself off of pharmaceuticals many years ago and traded that out for herbs to support me. And so that's something that I need to have on hand. I need to know that. I need to know how to harvest that. I need to make that. So what does that look like for your family? If you do have young kids, what herbs are nice for kids? Have lemon balm on hand. Lemon balm is so nice for kids for so many things. It can help support them just in relaxing and getting better sleep. It can help support them when they're sick. Learning reishi mushroom, which you can find wild here. That's also going to support the nervous system and the body's stress response. So the other part of this that I think people miss is that a lot of like health conditions can be mitigated, or even like the risk of them developing will be lowered if you're supporting your body's stress response, your nervous system, and your immune system. Because when your cortisol's out of whack, when you're stressed out all the time, your blood pressure is going to shoot up. Like, it's going to cause other problems. So you could start by focusing on those local herbs that will help you create more space in your body, help your cells function and do their jobs at an optimal level. A mineral-rich vinegar, like just getting the right minerals in your body, will help your body be able to produce and release the proper amounts of hormones and neurotransmitters at the right times of day, things like that. So, taking this bigger picture versus like, what are the top 5 like antibiotic herbs I need? Well, if you're looking at long-term, and if we're looking at a preparedness scenario, we'd probably rather just not have a super intense condition during that time.
Right.
So why don't we mitigate it?
Yeah.
Do the gentle stuff, start doing it now, have it on hand. Maybe you won't have to face that. And then have your backup plan. Okay, what if we do have to face it? What if we do have an injury that gets infected? What am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to have my yarrow on hand. I'm going to have my usnea on hand. I'm going to have my echinacea on hand. I mean, there's a native echinacea here in Tennessee. Not everybody's going to have access to that, but what is growing in your area, that you can call on. So,
well, and if you're trying to switch that stuff out now before a bad situation happens, you have more of a chance to test things out.
Absolutely.
So it's not like you don't want to wait until you have no access to anything to be like, oh, now I should try this herb.
Yeah. And also, by the way, you're going to want your tincture to sit for 4 to 8 weeks. So you don't need to be making a tincture right when stuff goes down.
Yeah.
That needs to already be made. So.
Yeah. And also, I mean, looking now, you're saying, let's just not do it now, or it doesn't grow right here. I mean, and Leslie, you and I have talked about it, and you saw the greenhouse I'm doing. The plans on the greenhouse, that's going to kind of be my pharmacy. Yep. I want to keep plants growing. Not necessarily, I don't have everything that I need on my property, but I've got time now that I can get it and propagate it. Yeah. Just it grows in my area, just not on my property right at this moment.
Exactly.
That you can figure it out and get it to grow on your property.
Exactly.
That's one of the goals here. That greenhouse will probably be full of medicinal stuff.
Yeah. And even if this is all overwhelming, like if there's other people in your community, like you don't have to grow everything. Right. Why don't one of you grow one thing and the other one grow the other and then trade it out? I trade herbs with a lot of people. It works better when you have people doing it with you.
with Snoop Dogg trading.
So Fed Up asked a question, any hard copy book recommendations? You named one of them. I put it in my Amazon cart after you said it. What was the name of that one
It's
again?
called Botany in a Day. It's by Thomas Elpel.
So
and
what
then
about actual like herbal books?
Yeah. So if you want a good, it's called a materia medica, when you just have a book that says this is the herb and this is all of its uses. I really like Everything by Rosemary Gladstar. She has a lot of stuff out there that's just compilations of here's all about these herbs. Matthew Wood has an awesome set of materia medica books. One is European plants. So that's handy if you're like growing things in your garden that wouldn't be native here. The other one is like American plants, like the ones that are growing here natively. My other favorite resources, and these are interesting because they might have different information than more modern herbals, is that I have a couple of Cherokee herbals. My ancestry is Cherokee, and so I've sought out this information, but there's one by J.T. Garrett that writes about all the traditional uses of plants by the Cherokee people. And you'll find stuff in there that isn't going to be listed in other herbals, which is very interesting. And like I said, plants have such a wide variety of uses that it's pretty cool to see that.
That is neat.
Yeah. And Billy was in here just a minute ago. I don't know if he's still here or not, but thanks for dropping in, Billy. Or Michelle. It might be Michelle.
It might be Michelle.
Yeah.
Michelle's into learning herbal stuff too.
Awesome.
So Forrest Smith asked, for overall health, what is the one herb you would recommend people start using and why?
I would have to know more about the individual person because people are all very different and need very different things. And also it depends if you're taking any pharmaceuticals, there could be contraindications, like how old are you? What phase of life are you in? Like, it's really hard to just say one blanket thing for everybody. But like I was saying before, I would probably choose for almost everyone something to support the body's stress response. So like some sort of adaptogenic herb that's going to help your body not get inflamed and chaotic every time you get stressed out. So some of those might be like reishi mushroom or astragalus root or ashwagandha or holy basil. But I really want to know more about the person before saying one particular thing.
When I was out at Midwest, I got to meet Lisa. She's got a little herbal thing going on. She does salves and tinctures and stuff like that. And I think it's called Silver Lining Herbs or something like that. But she had just a little tin in her bag where she had made plantain salve. Mm-hmm. The reason I bring that up is because one of the girls that was there had a problem with her earring, and her ear had swollen up, and like the back of the earring was kind of in her, it was a mess. And so we finally got that out, the back of the earring off, and got that out, which relieved a lot of the pressure. But Lisa came by with some of that salve and put it on there, and like the next morning her earlobe was fine. Yep. I mean, and I know that it does stuff, and I know that it's great for stuff like that, but that's the first time that I've actually seen the power of that. Yeah. And so Forrest, I would say make some plantain salve. I mean, yeah. There you go. Because, cut yourself or what, it's great for bee stings. I mean, mm-hmm. Plantain, not even in a salve, but just mushing it up, putting it on a bee sting and stuff like that. It was, I was very impressed with how well that worked to fix that. Yeah. Not only does it like reduce inflammation, but it also will draw out any like toxins or it can even draw a splinter out of your hand or your body. Yeah. So
what about the Bose Tractor Works, the hemp stuff that he had?
Oh my gosh. So did you meet them at the festival, Bose Tractor Works? They make a salve that's hemp. It's made out of hemp, And so I went up and asked him about it because, like at our festival, it's in the arena and you're up, and if you're Jason or I, you're up and down stairs like all day long, 15,000 steps a day or whatever. So I don't know, it was like midway through Saturday, my knees were bothering me. And so I went down and talked to him and I said, so I've looked up your stuff on Facebook and everything. And I said, tell me about this. And so he told me, he said, well, come back here and sit down and I'll put it on your knees. And I was like, no. He goes, well, just pull your pants up. And I was like, no. So he said, okay. He said, I'll give you this jar. You go wherever you're going to go and put it on your knees and everything. And he goes, if it doesn't help, you can just have it. By the time I went out to our trailer, dropped my pants, put it on my knees and everything. By the time I walked back inside, my knees were not hurting. Now, I know their stuff has like, it's got hemp in it. It's got turmeric in it. There's like everything on there is like a real thing, like not a chemical name or whatever. It's a plant or herb or whatever that you can go out and find. And I know that they make all of that stuff. Y'all, it's amazing how well it works. Absolutely amazing. It doesn't have other kind of like store-bought analgesics in it or anything like that. It blew my mind how well this stuff works.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many like anti-inflammatory plants and plants that will soothe all that kind of ache and pain on your body. Pine needles, juniper leaves and berries. Like both of those have amazing like analgesic, anti-inflammatory properties. I make those into a muscle salve. So, even if you don't want to source like hemp and all that other stuff, you can still make things like that with plants yourself. And
so if you're using pine needles to make a salve, does that mean that you're just like soaking the pine needles in some kind of oil or whatever? And
yeah, so I would harvest the pine needles and I would chop them very small. And I usually potentiate my infused oils by putting a splash of vodka over the needles in the jar first, and then closing the lid, shaking it up. So it's barely any vodka, just enough to coat. The alcohol starts extracting a lot of those constituents, leave it there for 24 hours, and then I would add my oil and do the like 4-week infusion.
Wow. That's fantastic.
So that way you're getting all those alcohol soluble constituents. And this is a technique that I learned from Cammie McBride. She does some really cool online classes about herbal infused oils and like getting the most potent oils. But I have found that the oils that I make using her method are so much more powerful, even more fragrant. But yeah, that's how I would do the pine needles.
Wow, that's awesome.
Leslie, I've got one for you. You see on Facebook all the time the ads, wild lettuce is the opium, opium when you can't get it and all that. Mm-hmm. How true is that?
I've never taken opium, so I don't have anything to compare it to. But what I hear from people who have is that, and actually compare it on the scale of like herbal sedatives and relaxants, it's not super high on the list. Like there are other herbs that are going to be more sedative, more pain relieving than wild lettuce. But if you make your extraction concentrated enough, a lot of people I know do say it helps them sleep. Really? So it is effective, but I wouldn't say it would be like taking opium from what I hear.
Well, yeah, they act like it's, this massive pain reliever and all that. And I just didn't know if it really, of course, every time they're selling stuff on Facebook, it's true and everything. So yeah. I just didn't know if it was that potent or not, to where it's like,
I've heard it's comparable to like taking Tylenol.
Yeah. And I think, the thing about herbs that's interesting too is that people's bodies all respond differently to an herb. Definitely. So one person might say like, that knocked me out. And another person might say, I felt literally nothing. But then give them both a different herb and they'll have different reactions to that herb. So I think that's why, going back to what you're saying earlier, Shelly, like that's why people need to start like exploring this now, like figure out what does work for you. Are you sensitive to
Yes.
this and not to that? Maybe you need double the dose that your partner needs or something. Like, it just, you got to figure it out.
So when you were here at Jason's, I feel like I'm drilling you with questions. This is so
That's what
interesting
she's
to
here
me.
for.
Yeah.
When you were here at Jason's, we were talking about mimosa.
Yeah.
And so I came home from that on Sunday. I came home and I've got a huge mimosa tree with pink blooms all over it and everything. I actually conned my oldest daughter into going out there and getting them because where it's at, like our field is just like downhill bad. So she went out there and got me a whole bag of those flowers. I brought them in, made a tincture, and I noticed before, I guess it was last night or before I went to bed, I went, because they're in my pantry because it's dark and everything in there, and all of those flowers have turned white. Isn't
it so cool? Yeah. It's
because
extracting out.
I'm gonna have this like beautiful tincture with these pink green, you know, and I went in there and everything's white, and I'm like, uh-oh, did I do something wrong?
No, that's exactly right. Mine is all white too, and that the same thing happens if you tincture like violet flowers. I love watching it. They look like little ghosts of themselves after it sets long enough. It just, because all the color in a flower is a chemical constituent. Those are the things that we know of as like antioxidants. And so the alcohol is drawing them out of the plant. That's the purpose. So it's drawing the color out because the color is a chemical that the flower has created. So
that's awesome. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm good. Everything's
You're good. Totally good. And also, if you want to tip, my favorite thing to do with the mimosa tincture, if you have any room in your jar, you can add a little bit of honey now, or you can wait till you strain it and then put it with part honey in the alcohol. And it makes this elixir that is just heavenly. So good.
All right. I'll give that a try.
Now, what does the mimosa do?
So, yeah, tell us. Go ahead and tell us about mimosa.
It's the tree of happiness. And it's been used for a long, long time in traditional Chinese medicine. But it is very effective at treating like anxiety and depression. It's a mood enhancer. So, you know, for me, if I'm like grumpy in the morning and I take a few drops of my mimosa elixir, suddenly I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay.
Wow.
If you add the honey to it, does it reduce the shelf life or is it still fine?
Still fine.
Good. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mike from Plant Food Nursery, he wants to know, can you tell about skullcap? Can you talk about that? Yeah, so
skullcap is actually, for me and my body, the most effective pain relief and nervous system support, like in the moment. So skullcap can help you relax. It can help you fall asleep. If you're someone who's prone to like bouts of anxiety or panic, it can actually help calm you down. And it even has a long-term effect on tonifying the nervous system. So like taking it over time can help your nervous system be less reactive. So like you go into fight or flight less frequently or with a reduced amount of intensity. But we do have a native skullcap here in Tennessee. There's actually like 2 species that I think I've found here. And you can tincture the flowering tops, so like the leaves and flowers of the skullcap plant. But that's definitely a great one to have on hand. And for me, if like it helps me immensely with pain. So yeah.
I'm looking it up because I don't know what it looks like. I want to see.
It's called skullcap because after it flowers and goes to seed, the little seed pods look like skulls. It's wild. Look at that picture.
Look what's coming up on my phone. It's all it's just beanies.
You're gonna get a skullet on there in a little bit.
Skullcap plant. Let's try that.
Yeah, try that.
Oh, well, that's pretty.
Yeah.
I got some of that here, I bet.
I have some of this at home. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Leslie, out of everything you saw at my house, what's the best one that I've got growing?
Oh, St. John's wort by a long shot. You have the medicinal species of St. John's wort. I actually have St. John's wort oil sitting here because I love it so much as a body oil. Like it relaxes my muscles if I'm tense. It is just immediate relief. But St. John's wort is actually another one where in the tincture form, it actually has been used to treat depression and anxiety. Now, it's important if you're listening to this and you're on a pharmaceutical antidepressant, do not mix these, please. There's a lot of contraindications between St. John's wort and pharmaceuticals. But yeah, you have those yellow flowers that are over. There's a tree that's like, where we were walking to look at your food forest on the right. Yeah. To the left is a tree, and right beside that tree is this very tall flowering St. John's wort.
Is that your big cedar tree?
Yellow flowers.
The cedar tree
it was.
With the rocks around it?
Yeah.
Damn. I don't want to do it tomorrow.
Go look down there and get those flowers and tincture them or infuse them in an oil or something.
I'm blowing work off tomorrow and put my wizard cap on and go start collecting stuff.
Yeah.
Every time I go to the liquor store to buy vodka, it's like I'm going to get two
Me too.
gallon jugs.
Yeah.
And I'm walking up there and put it on the counter, and the guy looks at me like, gonna have a good weekend.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm making medicine.
The last time I went in there, I bought like 2 things, 100 proof vodka and a thing of 190 proof grain alcohol. And I put it on the counter and he looks at me and he's like, "Are you murdering somebody tonight?" I'm like, no.
Your liver's going to be shot.
Yeah. I'm like, don't worry. It's for herbal medicine.
Yeah.
One night I ended up giving all the guys in the liquor store a lesson on plant extraction because they were so fascinated that I was using it to make tinctures. They're like, "What? I had no idea."
We just thought you were a drunk.
Yeah.
You're like, let's go out here and pick these dandelions.
Yeah.
And teach you what you can do with this.
Exactly. I'm converting everybody.
Well, hey, wild. Talking about that, Leslie, if you're going to do an alcohol-based tincture, what's the best stuff to use? Is it better to use vodka or is it better to use like pure grain alcohol?
So the simple answer is like if you're just starting out and you kind of want to not have to worry about all the different things, just buy yourself a good 100 proof vodka. Because for most plants, fresh or dried, that's going to be fine. It might not be the most potent thing or whatever, but it's great to start out because you don't have to like calculate all this stuff in your head. But taking it a step further, it kind of depends. Like if you're going to tincture fresh plants, like wild lettuce, for example, has a very high moisture content. And if you want to tincture it fresh, then I would use the grain alcohol, right? If it's a dried plant, you might only need 80 proof vodka because there's no moisture content.
All right.
So, there's different reasons why you would use something different, but pretty safe is 100 proof vodka.
Yeah, Mike Shepard's trying to get us to come out at his place and get all kinds of stuff.
Dude,
awesome.
Chuck's here too.
We can make serious medicine out of stuff at Mike's place. I mean, he's got everything growing.
Really.
That's awesome.
Boy. All right, so essentially start with 100 proof vodka will be the safest route to go.
Yeah. Okay. You can't really mess it up too bad with that.
Yeah, is it going to hurt if we use like pure grain alcohol? Will it hurt anything?
It's going to be very unpleasant to take droppers full of grain alcohol when you're taking your tincture.
Shoot, some of the vodka I took before was nasty. I was like, how can somebody put this down?
I mean, fair enough, but luckily a dropper full is not a lot. We're talking about 1/4 of a teaspoon. So
yeah.
Miss Sharon, I agree. I don't want to math all that stuff either.
Yeah. So that's the thing is like with herbalism, you can do what's called the folk method, which is where you don't have to weigh anything or measure anything or calculate anything. You just put some herbs in a jar and put the menstruum over it and shake it up, and that's that. And then I love that method. I do that mostly. And then if you want to be all scientific about it, there's recipes and ratios, and you have to figure all this stuff and do the equations. And what is the ratio of herb to menstruum? And what's the percentage alcohol? And what's the final outcome? And, if you're that kind of person, there are books out there that will teach you how to do it by the recipe. The Medicine Maker's Handbook is one. if you really want recipes and you want to weigh everything out, that's going to be your best friend.
So is there an advantage to doing that? Like, are you getting more potent remedies or something?
So the time when I worry about anything like that is for the preparation I was talking about that I take every day, because it's like to treat a health condition that I want to have a consistent product over time.
Right.
I would like my medicine, because I found that it worked for me, then I want it to make sure that it's at least that potent every time I make it. So I have my recipe that I will follow, because then that'll guarantee me that the product is going to be the same. So, you know, the way you can do that with the folk method is just like write down what you did when you put some in there and didn't measure it, you know, be like, oh, it was about 3/4 of the jar full. Okay, well, when you get your final product, if you're like, that didn't do anything, maybe I should make it more potent. Now you know where you started, so you can make it with more plant matter the next time, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Leslie, tell us what, if people come to the herbal class in July 20th, I forget every time. If the class in July, tell them what they can expect, what you're going to go over, and tell them what they're going to leave with knowledge and stuff like that. Kind of tell them why they need to be there and what they're going to. I know some people are like, man, I don't know if I can do a full herbal class, or I don't know, you know, man, that's expensive, but it's something that you're going to learn and, you know, take with you. It's not like it's not like you're throwing money away. And everything we've talked about, this is all stuff that you can do right now if you want to.
Absolutely. So I'm gearing this class towards people who actually want to leave with all the basics under their belt. Like, you can take this class and go home and make an apothecary for your family without having to take another class. I mean, you can, and also part of the class will be, if you do want to learn more, how do you do that? And where do you seek out that knowledge? Whatever part of it you want to dive deeper in. But the morning, we're going to go out into the field and we're going to get our hands on plants. Okay, this is what a leaf margin is. This is what opposite leaves mean. And we're going to learn a couple of plant families, right? So you're going to leave knowing, okay, this is mint family plant. And I know that because it has a square stem and opposite leaves. We're going to look at how to use a field guide to key something out. And I'm going to point out to you some of the plants growing there, you know, that are medicinal and edible. And I will tell you, okay, if you want to harvest this, this is what part of the plant you're going to harvest. This is how you would do it. This is how you would process it. So that's going to be the morning. It's going to be outdoors, hands-on. And then in the afternoon, we're going to go over the 4 major preparation methods and extraction methods. So we're going to do the basic alcohol tincture, the basic vinegar extraction, a basic oil extraction, infused oil, and then the basic herbal tea. So there's 2 different sort of preparation methods for making tea, depending on what part of the plant you're working with. And we're going to cover both of those. So you're going to know how to extract all 4 menstruums, and we'll cover also, like, so how do you know which one to do? And a lot of that is going to be, well, you look up your plant in a resource book. I'll bring a bunch of my books so y'all can look through them, see if any speak to you. You can write down what you want to purchase for yourself in your home library. But we're going to actually be making all 4 of those extractions. So you will get to go home with the beginnings of your own apothecary.
And that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think that's great that you're going to break down, because a lot of people just think when they see tinctures, it's alcohol based.
Yeah.
What you've told me before, if you use the wrong herb and do an alcohol base, it's not going to give you what you want. It's not going to extract the stuff from there.
Exactly, because some things are only water soluble, or if you're wanting the minerals and vitamins, alcohol is not pulling those out. Vinegar is pulling those out.
Yeah.
You know, if you want the liver support from milk thistle tea is not going to cut it. You have to put it in alcohol, stuff like that.
Forrest asked, he said he's totally new to herbal medicine. Can you use herbs to treat serious illnesses like diabetes or high blood pressure?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. I've actually helped a lot of people get off of blood pressure medications using herbs. I've never had a client with diabetes, but I have known plenty of other herbalists who've supported people finding their pathway out of that. Yeah.
What'd Chuck say?
He said talk slow for Forrest.
Yeah, Forrest, talk slow for him. Forrest, you need to come up for this class. You don't have anything else to do. I know. So, but I think it's really cool that people are going to leave not only with the knowledge of how to do all this, but they're actually going to leave with the tinctures that y'all made in class. I mean,
yeah,
I love that.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because once you get your hands on it, and if you've done it one time, if you've looked at a plant, touched a plant, picked a plant, made your tincture, then it's so much less overwhelming. Like, you've got your hands on it. Now you know what you're doing. You don't have to worry about it. You can go out in the field and do it yourself.
What Leslie would you leave everybody with? We're coming up on about an hour, and I know everybody's got stuff to do. And I mean, I think you've dropped a ton of truth bombs and I mean, just knowledge right now. If somebody's hesitant on coming to the class, what would you tell them if they're hesitant and kind of on the fence of, do I really want to do this, or is it worth it, or is this just a bunch of hokey stuff like they said in Star Wars, a hokey religion or whatever?
Star Wars?
Yeah, the Force, the Jedi, Han Solo, like this hokey religion that you're doing.
Y'all see what I deal with.
I mean, I would say...
I do, but my tincture's not done yet, so you back off, okay? You just gotta back off.
I would ask people what their excuse is. Like, who would not want to know where the free food and medicine is in your yard? There's literally no reason to not know that. Like, I promise you that your grandparents knew that. Your great-grandparents knew that. Somewhere in your line, they knew that. And that's what they used. And then, like, somehow we've been separated from that, and that's like a big no for me. Like, I'm going to take that back. That is our birthright. And whatever separated us from that, like, is not, aligned with what we humans are here for and to do. Like, why would there be food and medicine all around us if we're not supposed to use it?
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's modern agriculture and modern everything else. It's like, spray your yard, kill everything. Yeah. And all we want is Kentucky 31 growing in the yard.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we could get into it, but it's like, the food that we get fed, the medicines we get fed, it's like, stay sick because we want your money. Well, guess what? Let's opt out of that. Let's opt out and let's take our own health back and our own well-being back and get out in our yards and figure out what's growing there and, like, appreciate that abundance, because that's a gift.
Yeah. And absolutely. I mean, I'm excited that my yard is going now from Kentucky 31 to clover.
Yeah.
So just the big thing is I don't have to mow it near as often.
Yeah.
The clover gets like 6 to 8 inches tall and it tops out there. And I'm like, I can mow this every 3 weeks if I want to.
Yep.
That'll run the sheep across it.
Yep.
So, Forrest, will there be more class dates? Forrest, this one, the full day is July 20th. Leslie's going to be doing a half-day class at the festival, right, Leslie?
Yeah.
She'll be doing like a 4-hour class Friday before the festival. So
we won't be able to cover all that same stuff in those 4 hours, but we'll get some stuff covered.
Homestead Ridge has a serious question. How does one make alcohol to use in a tincture if vodka ever becomes unavailable?
It's called moonshine, and you got to buy still, and that's illegal. But there's a lot of moonshiners out there with YouTube channels who teach you how to do it. Luckily, I know people who know how to do that. But moonshine, learn how to make moonshine. learn how to make your own apple cider vinegar. There was someone at the festival doing that. Shelly has a YouTube about how to do that. Make your own vinegar because you're going to want to extract that. And then the other extraction is from oil, but we're not going to be able to get vegetable and seed oils. But guess what you can use? The tallow from your animals.
Yeah.
That is what our ancestors used, and you can infuse into tallow, and it's very potent. So,
okay, is that the Dove Tramp show? It says we have a pot full of mint on the deck. I never noticed that the stem was square. Super cool.
Yay! I love
it. And Miss Sharon says that Home Depot has a distiller for $84. Just saying.
Oh yeah, grab those up.
And I've seen a distiller that you can put on your oven.
I have one like that. Yep, it's just a stovetop still.
And you're not, I mean, if you're just making tinctures, you don't need a whole lot of alcohol, do you?
Not really. I mean, whatever you're filling your jar up. So, however big your jar is, you're going to put plant matter in there and fill it the rest of the way with alcohol. So,
yeah.
So if you're making your own moonshine, is that 100 proof number, or do you got to be careful with that?
I mean, you got to measure it, and there's all these tools. Like I was talking to somebody to figure this out. I'm not an expert in moonshine. But you can get a certain thing that'll measure your alcohol proof. So then you know what you end up with. Okay. All right. Yeah. But you should definitely look at what your final proof is.
I feel like if you could make the alcohol, I could make the tinctures.
Well, funny story about moonshine stills. In college, I came home and I came to my parents' house and I went to my dad's office and I was looking through his bookcases and he goes, "What are you looking for?" I was like, "Where's your Foxfire books?" And
yeah.
He was like, they're over here. And I said, okay. And I sat down and was thumbing through. And he goes, "What are you doing?" He said, like, "What's your angle?" I was like, "I'm trying to find the one that's how to make a moonshine still." And he goes, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Me and my fraternity brothers are going to start making moonshine." He grabs the book and he goes, "The hell you are," and went and hid the book. He's like, "You're not doing it." And I was like, "Golly, you're no fun." So that was the beginning and the end of my moonshine career.
Maybe that needs to start back up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got the book now because he gave me all of them. I've just never done it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so everybody should report back on their moonshine adventures. Maybe y'all should do a different episode on that.
I get in trouble for doing a video making moonshine.
Well, you can't show it being made. You just talk about it.
We get the revenuers down on us. Isn't that what they call them?
Yeah.
Yeah, the revenuers.
Yeah.
Leslie, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Awesome. I am all over on Facebook at School of Earth and Awe, AWE. I'm on Instagram at School of Earth and Awe. And if you want any like mini lessons, recipes, video tutorials, video plant walks, you can subscribe to my Patreon site for as little as $5 a month. I feature a Meet the Plant video every month. I give out recipes and tutorials. That's over at patreon.com/School of Earth and Awe. If you have questions about anything, feel free to email me too. I'm at schooloferthandawe@gmail.com.
Awesome.
So you can go to KentuckySustainableLiving.com and get tickets to her class I'm looking at the board too, on July 20th for the herbal class. That's here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We would love to see you there. And I'm super excited about all the stuff that we're going to get to make and do and everything. When I found out that you were going to do this for us, I was like, yes. So I'm really excited about it. But go over to KentuckySustainableLiving.com, click on workshops, and there will be a link to her class. You can get a ticket, and we'll be providing lunch that day. And like Leslie said, you'll be taking stuff home. What else?
Chuck, I'll put a link to her Patreon in the description after this. So I can't do it right now, and Shelly doesn't have her laptop to do it. So, but I'll put your Patreon link in the description after this.
Sounds good.
And also, if you but to get your tickets to the festival that's coming up in October, the dates are October 26th and 27th. You can get those at KentuckySustainableLiving.com as well. We'd love to see you there. And Leslie's going to be teaching that 4-hour class on Friday, the 25th. We don't have those workshops posted on the site yet, but they'll probably be up in the next couple of weeks. I need to get with Joe about that. But she will be teaching that class there as well. Chuck's going to be there teaching a class. We actually have quite a few classes on that Friday before. So you'll want to check that out and get your learning on.
Yeah, I hope to see.
Yeah, this festival is going to be even bigger than last time. The second one we had was awesome. This one is going to be even better, even more people coming in, a lot more vendors, stuff like that. So you'll really want to be there for the next one. So, and that's probably all for the night. Leslie, thank you a bunch for hanging out with us and dropping all the knowledge of herbs and stuff and wetting everybody's whistle on why they need this and everything. Yeah. We'll close this out. Leslie, stay on, and I'm going to end the stream. Good night, y'all.
Good night.
Bye.